Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Express. Well, this is a new week and a new episode on what is becoming everyone's favorite talk show. You'll agree with me that it is encouraging, exciting, profound, real, energizing, sensible, and sensitive. This is what Express is all about, and much more. So, without any further delay, please help me welcome back to the stage the beautiful, expressive, talented, and savvy director of Express. She's called Carolyn. Carolyn, take it away.
Today is our fourth episode for Express Talk Show. Welcome. This is Carolyn. Today we have as our guest Dr. Paulette Terrelonge. She is a lady who has had hardship, and several blocks in her life, including her career. But I just have one word to say about this lady. She is unstoppable. Why don't you sit back and listen to her story? Hi, Dr. Terrelonge. How are you today?
Hi, this is Carolyn. Fine, thank you.
Okay, so good for you to be here, and I'm excited to hear your story. And I know all those who are viewing, they are excited to hear your story too. Now, you can get started.
Okay, thank you so much for having me on this program, Express. And I hope that my story will encourage someone to do whatever their heart tells them to do. So my journey started in Manchester, Jamaica, West Indies, where I was born. I matriculated through the elementary school, secondary school, and high school in my area. But when I was in the elementary school, I remember that although I was a brilliant kid, I skipped a couple of grades, like I skipped grade 3 and I skipped grade 5. Yet still, when it was time for me to do common entrance, I wasn't allowed to do it because one of the requirements was to do extra lessons and to pay for it. My mother could not afford to pay for those extra lessons, so I was not allowed to do common entrance. So I went on to the secondary school in my district, in my town, and I was allowed to do the grade 9 achievement test, which I passed, and I went on to the Homewood Technical High School, also in my district, my area. When I went to Homewood, I did the science subject because I had in the back of my mind that I want to be a nurse. I went through Homewood, I spent 3 years, and I went on to Knox Community College because when I applied to nursing school, I was told I needed a better grade in English. So I repeated English at O-level, ordinary level, and I did a few more subjects. Then I reapplied to University School of Nursing, University Hospital School of Nursing, where I was accepted. I spent 3 years and a couple of months.
So let me ask you, so when you got through for university, was there any blocks there? Was it, when you went for the, to register, was there a problem? Was it easy for you to go home? Because I remember reading in your book where you said, I think you went to do the exam and you couldn't get a bus to get back home?
Yes. I was a bit adventurous. No, I lived in Manchester. I'm going to Kingston, which as a teenager, that's a far distance for me to go all by myself. But I got to Kingston, I did my entrance exam and then my interview, and I was going back home. But when I was a small child, we always go to Hope Gardens on like church trips and so on. So realizing University Hospital was so close to Hope Gardens, I decided to stop there and go see all the animals, go on all the rides. I guess forgetting that I had to go to Manchester. Night was coming and I was still in Kingston. Could not get a bus to go to Manchester. Wow. I got a ride to Maypen, which is like half a distance. I got another ride into Mandeville, but then from Mandeville to Christiana, I couldn't get a ride at all. The minivans had stopped running, but luckily, a good Samaritan, and those were the days when you could trust people. A good Samaritan say I could spend the night at their home, which I did, uneventful, thank God. And then I was on the first bus the next month to Christiana. My poor mother, those days, we don't have telephone, so she must be fretting her heart out what happened to me because I couldn't communicate with her.
Right.
So the next day, when I got to Christianatown, I used a public phone and called her because she was working at home with Technical High School, which is the same high school that I was enrolled in. And I told her that, I'm okay, what happened. Not in detail that I went to a garden, but I told her that I could not get a bus to come home. So that was that experience.
Yes.
And yes, I've had several other experiences because the journey from Christian in Manchester to Kingston was a long one. I have to take 3 transportation, but the Lord only bring me back home. I remember though, when I was going to start nursing school, my mother, it was a big event. My mother hired a bus. We had 4 girls from the high school, Homewood Technical High School, that was boarded with us. Everybody boarded the bus, and that was the first straight ride I got to Kingston, because then I had all my belongings, so they had to hire a bus. But then I got to Kingston, and one of the experiences, which is probably routine, but it was the students from the university hospital. They would come over and sing songs, not welcoming songs. They would say that we were like Bastille, which is a French prison, because we had curfews. Like they didn't have curfews. When we just started, we had a little curfew, but then we all blended in, and I did my nursing very, very happy. But go ahead, tell me your name is
Did you live on the dorm, or did you live in the community?
Yes, we lived on the dorm. There were preparations for every student nurse to live on the dorm, for we need to be next to the hospital where we do our clinicals.
Okay.
So we all lived on the dorm. Those who lived in Kingston might go home on weekends or so on, but we all had rooms on the dorm. The first 3 months, which is the preliminary training part school, we shared rooms. But after that, for the next 2.5 years, we got our separate single rooms.
So what experience did you have as a nurse working in Jamaica?
Well, as a nurse working in Jamaica, it was very rewarding. I was more respected. People call me like Nurse Ashley. My maiden name was Ashley. I was Ashley then.
Yes.
And they respected me. And I remember they look out for you. Like when I remember I was working in the outpatient clinic, outpatient surgical clinic, where we do all kind of dressings. And said my shift started at 8 o'clock. But many of the patients come early, and you know what? They flip the sterilizer before I get there, because they know that the longer, if they're to wait at 8 o'clock, they think that they never leave. So they want to get a head start. So they fill up the sterilizer with water and get the sterilizer going. So by the time I get there, all I need to do is to take out the equipment. And I worked in many, many units. A matter of fact, as a nursing student, I did work in we have to rotate in all the units, and everyone I get to, I would say, boy, I want to work in that area. I get to psych, I get to peds, not so much med-surg, but all the specialized areas, I would say I want to work there. Then I went to labor and delivery, the maternity unit, and I said, this is where I want to work. So when I graduated as a registered nurse, now I did the nursing council exam, I passed it and I started to work on a med-surg step-down unit. And then I worked in the emergency room. And all that was very rewarding at that time. You just graduate, you work in these let me say, adrenaline rushed areas, step down ICU and the meds and the emergency room. I loved it. But then I'd applied to do midwifery and I got through.
So how soon after you qualified did you
maybe about 2 years, maybe about 2 years after I finished general training. I got into midwifery.
And how long was your midwifery course?
Midwifery course, I think, was about 18 months. It wasn't a long course. It was like about 18 months to 2 years. I can't even remember so good. But I rotated through all the areas. I had to do deliveries on my own after suture, episiotomies. Yes. It was very rewarding to think that I'm not a surgeon, yet still I'm doing sutures, and I loved it. I loved the babies too.
Yeah. So you worked in the community, labor and delivery. Where did you work most of the time as a midwife?
Most of the time was spent, I would say, between maternity and the nursery. Between maternity and the newborn nursery. But I must tell you that during the time while I was doing midwifery, just before I had gotten married, and every time I work in the nursery and feed those newborn babies and feed them and care for them, I wish I could have a child. And then it happened. I had my son, and then I continued working at University Hospital, and then I heard that my son was a baby. And I heard about a school that needed a childcare teacher. I figured have more regular hours, no night duty and all of that. So I applied to this school, which is Edith Dalton James Secondary School. And I worked there for about 6 months as a childcare teacher.
So this is still in Jamaica, right?
Still in Jamaica. Okay, then my husband, who was also a nurse, he was transferred to Western College then to be head of nursing department and at Western College. So I went to Western College with him and I became assistant director of the health services.
Really?
Yes, I was assistant director of health services at Western College, and I worked there for about a year and a half. And then my husband decided so we went to live in Mandeville.
Okay.
We went to live in Mandeville. And then my husband decided to go back to Kingston to live. So we went to Kingston. But during that time, I had done the CGFNS exam, which is a qualifying exam for us to work in the United States. And I must tell you, I had done that exam twice before and didn't pass it. But I guess I didn't have the urgency or the real need to come to the United States. I just wanted to do it, and if I pass it, I'll come. I didn't pass for 2 times, and then I started having problems in my life, problems in my marriage, and I decided that I needed to get away. So I would call myself as a refugee, but I didn't run right away. I did all my preparation. I did the exam. I know that when I come here, I could work without any hindrance.
Right.
So I did that. And when the results came out, I passed. And I was so happy because I failed it twice before. And
you were more focused then, I guess.
Yes. And then I got through the hospital, one hospital, Lutheran Medical Center, came to Jamaica and interviewed a bunch of us. No, my son was about 2.5 years old.
They all came with you.
Yes, and my son was with me. When I'm doing the interview, I had my son in my lap. No, I had a scare because the interview took place in a hotel where the interviewer was staying. And it had balconies. And one of the time I was doing my interview, and when I looked, my son was almost forcing himself through the balcony. I grabbed him so fast, and I continued the interview with him in my lap.
Wow,
Yes,
determination.
yes, I had him in my lap. Needless to say, I was thinking that I wouldn't hear from that hospital again because the interview didn't go well with all those obstacles. But anyway, they called me, I got through. But then the Lord is so good because there's an agent who came to Jamaica, give us some exam, mock exams. They sent tickets for us. They paid all their way. I got an H1 visa. My husband and my son got H2 visas, but my husband wasn't ready to go to America yet, to come here. So I left him and I came. I started working, and after a year, I did the boards, nursing boards exam, RN boards, and I passed it. And after I passed it, I sent for my son. So my son, who was by now 5 years old, he came to live with me, and that too was a trip because I was on night duty. But luckily, there was a daycare right next to me, and they agreed to keep him at nights for me. Although they weren't open at nights usually. So what he did, he slept with the family who also lived on the same compound.
Okay, so you're in United States now.
Yes, I am.
And you're now working as an RN?
Yes, I'm working as an RN, but okay, so in Jamaica, I mentioned that I was a midwife.
Right.
And I loved midwifery. When I came here, I had the interview, and because of my background, they sent to labor and delivery. I remember when the nurse manager asked me a few questions, I just rattled them off.
Yes.
And she was so pleased. They hired me right away to work in labor. I was the only one of the group of, I think it's about 19 of us came up. In that batch. We came up in batches. I was the only one who went to labor and delivery. I was so happy because that was my love, labor and delivery. I didn't work as a midwife, but we were able to monitor the patients.
Labor and delivery nurse, right?
Yes. And I remember there are times when I was so stressed in that area because in Jamaica we didn't have fetal monitors. They had maybe one that they want to keep for the preeclampsia or the problem patient, but we use a funnel. The funnel, it's a funnel device, to the fetal heart, you know. But this continuous fetal monitoring and everything that you see everything of the late decelerations, then the problem, and there were a lot of cesarean sections, and it was just such a stressful area. But however, not being a midwife, I was able to manage, but it was just stressful. So every little chance I got, I was on 12-hour shifts. So if I get 12 hours or 4 12 hours together, I would go home because remember, my husband was still in Jamaica. So every chance I get, I would go to Jamaica, and I would love it so much because that was really like a breather for me. Anyway, my husband came and we were here, and then he didn't like it up here. He said he didn't like it, so he went back after a couple of months. He went back to Jamaica.
So now I know you love education, and you're a very kind person. You're always giving, and I met you through the ministry that we are part of, right? But I know you have your doctorate, right?
Yes, I do.
Tell me more about that.
Yes, so when I decided not to go back to Jamaica, one of the first things I did was to enroll with the City University of New York to do my bachelor degree, because in Jamaica we just get diploma for graduated. There was no BSN at that time unless we had gone to Western College, which I didn't. So I just had a diploma. So I applied and I did my bachelor's degree, and lucky for me, my union paid for all of that, so I didn't have to pay anything. Then immediately after I graduated with my bachelor, which took 4 years because it was part-time.
Mhm.
And
You work while you study.
yes, work while I study. And I was so happy when all the credit, because while I was working at Weston's College, I did do some credits, and I got them toward
Yes.
my bachelor's.
Okay.
So, that cut down the time. And while I was doing my bachelor's, I was, for the first 2 years, my GPA was 4. So I was entered into the Empire Who is Who among university colleges and students. So
Wow.
that was an award. And when I graduated, I graduated with magna cum laude. So
good.
So the Lord helped me in that respect.
Congratulations. Yes.
Yes. Then
So go ahead.
So after I left Medgar Evers College in Brooklyn, I applied to do my master's at Long Island University, but they have a focus. So I did the family nurse practitioner there because I reasoned that I was a midwife with limited experience elsewhere. So if I did family, I would do a little of everything. And I could be hired. I figured I'd be more marketable in other areas. So I did family nurse practitioner, and so I graduated with my master's degree. But while I was doing that, I was inducted into the Hall of Fame, the Honor Society at Long Island University. So because I did very well, my GPA by now was like about 3.8.
Great.
So I was in the Hall of the Honor Society. So anyway, I graduated. Oh, while I was at Long Island University, the last year, I had my daughter, who, by the way, is 15 years younger than her brother. I had my daughter, and then I remember when I graduated, when I was doing my last couple of classes, I was pregnant. The baby was resting on my nerve. I could hardly walk, and I had to hop the classes.
Your sciatica?
Yes, but I had to hop the classes because it was one of my last class. And without calculating, I had a baby in the summer. She was born in July, so I was able to finish my class in May, which is the end of that semester, and go and do my last semester in September because I had her right in the summer. So it worked out well for me. So I graduated the next year, May, when she was not even a year old. Yes, and then I continued
with your master's.
With my master's, and I continued working night duty at Brooklyn Hospital, Labor and Delivery, where I was all the time. I sent out a lot of applications. I don't know what happened. One company responded and tell them that, they interviewed me and said, okay, they're going to call me. And they gave me such great hope. And I never get called. And I sent out numerous applications. And, I concluded that if I had done maybe women's health nurse practitioner, I probably would have gotten, employed. But nobody wanted to hire me as a family nurse practitioner. Okay. So I stayed working at Brooklyn Hospital night duty, but then my daughter was becoming like a little over a year. She would sleep in the nights because I had a babysitter. She would sleep in the nights, and then in the days when I am to sleep, she stays up. So I said, no, I can't do night anymore. I applied to go on day shift. They said they didn't have any day opening. So I had to leave the hospital because I needed to work in the daytime. So I went on to work at Franklin Hospital in Valley Stream, which is part of the North Shore Long Island system. And then they closed the OB department because the clientele in that area were changing and living room was very slow. So I went to work at Forest Hills Hospital in Queens, which is a sister hospital. But when they saw that I had a master's degree and I had the inpatient obstetric exam, which proved my competency in that area. They offered the manager, the director at the time, offered me a patient care manager's position. I did not want to take it because I figure I've never worked as a manager. I don't want to be a manager. But she said to me, all right, try it. You are very qualified for it. Try it. If you don't like it, I'll give you a regular staff position. So suffice it to say, I did that job for 5 years.
Which job this was again?
This was the patient care manager, which in the interim they changed the title to assistant nurse manager.
Okay.
So I did that job for 5 years. Then I was on day shift, which worked out fine for me because my daughter, I could sleep, be home for my daughter. And I didn't work weekends except some Sundays as a manager. They want us to come in to do payroll and just give a little oversight to our unit. And then the director started, remember the 5th year, I was the only assistant nurse manager and manager who got a bonus that year. My director had said I was exceptional. I did very well. She gave me a very good interview and she applied for a bonus fund because the directors of the different units, OB, Med Surg, ICU, the directors had to apply for the bonuses. And I am the only manager who got a bonus that year, which says I was doing fairly well. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden I started to hear things like, you're not doing this, you don't do this, you don't do this, you are this. But you know what I realized? They wanted to put me on nights because they had hired another manager who they wanted to put on days. Mm. So I said, no, I can't do nights. I had a young child. But then my daughter was like about 9. And I just took vacation and didn't go back. Oh. Because as a manager, you don't have any union. It's just you and them, the high level manager. So they wanted to put me on nights. I didn't want to do it, so I just left.
So where did you go then? And when did you start your doctorate? Because I know recently, well, not recently, maybe the past 3 years, you completed your doctorate. Okay. And you were honored as. Tell me more about those.
Okay, so when I was at first as a manager, the health department, that is the Long Island, North Shore, LIJ system, that department, they wanted to pay for advanced practice nurses to do their doctorates, free of cost. And because I did family nurse practitioner, I was considered an advanced practice nurse. So they paid for me to do my doctorate. I did all the credits, all the coursework for which they paid for. But at the point at which I left, I was about to do my scholarly project, or you can call that thesis, the same thing. But I left. So I could find another hospital that would continue, that wanted to allow me to do the project.
And how many years at that time you were doing it?
At that time, I was like maybe 2 years into my doctorate.
And how long was required for you to complete it?
Okay, the whole thing would maybe about 3 or 4 years, but okay. They give us up to 7 years to finish.
Okay.
No, because I have okay. So my first project was going to do a true experiment in labor and delivery. No, I'm not in labor and delivery anymore, so I could do that true experiment. So my advisor advised me to maybe interview patients, what they would like, if they would like to try aromatherapy, which was my focus, aromatherapy usage in labor and delivery. So that didn't work out because I was applying at like MD. I just needed a group of pregnant patients. So I was applying to do it at different offices. No one wants to allow me. I didn't get through. So
this was your thesis or?
This, yes.
Okay.
So by now time was clicking. Maybe 6 years were gone now.
And this all happened because you had all these ups and downs, different changes.
Yes, I left the hospital. It was gonna facilitate me finishing everything.
Everything. Okay.
So I just didn't bother. I didn't think about the doctorate. I just realized that I just thought that I would never finish it. So okay, so I was home for a while, and then I applied to become a school nurse because I figured with my daughter now was 10, I needed something like a school nursing position because I needed the hours to correlate with when she goes to school because of issues I was having. So I got employed by the Department of Health of Mental Hygiene, and the good thing is that because I had a I had a master's degree at the time, but if you have a bachelor's degree, you can be called a public health nurse because you would have met all the requirements. For we did do public health and community health at the BSN program, so I was called a public health nurse, which I love because I always wanted to do public health, which would have been the other step from midwifery in Jamaica, but I left before I would have done that. So I will get to be called a public health nurse. And then my advisor said to me, while I was a school nurse, she said to me, why don't you change your focus again? Remember, I changed it twice before. Why don't you change to interviewing midwives, what they think about aromatherapy in labor and delivery? Do they think it would work? Because the literature show, like in England and other places, it worked. But so I changed my focus. Then I went to register, having not registered for like about 3-4 years. I went to register. It was the 7th year, and I could not register. They had dropped me from the program.
Wow.
I had to write letters and explain what had happened. I left the hospital. I have to change my focus, everything, and they readmitted me back.
Oh.
No, this was the 7th. This was going on to 8 years now, and by the time I get to what I need to do part time again, it took me another 2.5 years. So in 10 years, I completed my doctorate degree. Thankfully to God, I completed my doctorate degree, and I know it's only through God. I had to like pinch myself when people were calling me Dr. Terrelonge. I couldn't believe,
But you persevered, right?
I persevered.
You persevered. You didn't give up. Oh, that's
Yes,
great
and
stuff.
I must tell you that during the time when I wasn't working, because I wasn't working for a time, because after I applied to the school nursing, I had to wait. Although they accepted me from 1 April, I had to wait till the September. So they had me for September. So I had a few months which I wasn't working. So I started my book because I must tell you this. So I went to Hansa Place Church in Brooklyn where I was a member. And Dr. Barry Black came one Sabbath. It was an NCU day. He was our the keynote speaker at our preacher.
Barry Black.
Barry
is,
Black, Dr.
is
Barry
the,
Black. And he said,
he's a
everyone.
chaplain for.
Yeah, he's the United States chaplain, senator. He said, everyone can write a story. He had brought his book From the Hood to the Hill, and we bought books and he autographed it. He said everyone can write their story because I'm so busy. But a lady told him to the amount of time he fly from place to place. If he just writes on the airplane, the book must get finished. I went home. I started to write my story, and I write up to the point which I was in my doctorate. But I said I will not finish the book until I'm done with my doctorate. So I graduated in 2017 with my doctorate, and I started working on the last few chapters of my book. And by 2018, it was ready for publication. So I did write my book, The Journey of a Nurse from Dreams to Degrees, because I was a big dreamer of being a nurse. When I was 8 years old, I kept my dream alive. One of the songs that I sang when I was graduating from nursing school was Climb Every Mountain, Reach for the Stars, Follow Every Rainbow till you find your dream. I kept that song in me, and I realized that the sky is the limit. So which God assisted me. One of my favorite scriptures that I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. When my director offered me a job as a manager, I just said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. That has been my motto and my consolation. And today, it's 5 years now. I have completed my doctorate and looking to go on to bigger things, which I'll tell you when they do happen. And I must also say that about 2 years ago, I got an award for, I think it was the most outstanding school nurse. And I thought that was a big award because in New York City, there's like thousands of school nurses. So for me to get that award from New York City as the most outstanding or that recognition, it was a blessing to me, and I just give God thanks every day.
But you have a good work ethic. Even in the ministry that we are, you're always there. You're always, fitted in for whoever, don't show up. You have that you have that attitude about you that, whatever you set your mind to do, you're consistent, and I do admire that about you. I'm really happy that you were able to come here today and to tell us your story. And last sentence you'd like to give?
Yes, I must tell you, I remember when I was doing my bachelor's degree, I wasn't an Adventist. When I was doing my master's degree, I was an Adventist. And I'm telling you, just to put down the books for 24 hours, sunset Friday to sunset Saturday, and beyond, it felt so good. And I heard about this doctor that I didn't hear about it till after I started doing it. Whenever I take up the book to study, I always have to have my little devotion. I remember I had a little devotional book, and I must read it first. I must have my devotion. And studying became so easy. But I'm telling you, everyone put God first in everything. Trust Him, follow your dreams, persevere, don't give up. The sky's the limit, and the Lord is not going to reach up. Take your pathway to leave you. So please hold on to your dreams. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Paulette Terrelonge. Thank you for coming in and sharing your story with us. Do not let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do, by John Wooden. Thank you so much for listening. I hope someone somewhere who was thinking about doing nursing, that you'll just go ahead and do it. Someone who maybe started doing your nursing, you stopped, get back up and do your nursing. Someone who maybe wants to do your doctorate, your DMP, go ahead. Whatever you want to do, you can if you put your mind to it. Thank you so much. Goodbye. This is Carolyn saying goodbye from Express. Thank you.